Alright, what's up my friends? Welcome to my complete set review for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Every card, constructed, limited. We're doing them all. We're also giving out our award for Best in Show, our Sleeper Award, and our Trap Card Award. We did white, now we're doing blue. Watching on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Look for the other episodes in this series. Also look for my series coming up here, 10 new brews, Bronze to Mythic, tons of new content coming up as always. Make sure you follow me on YouTube, follow me on Twitch, follow me on everything. Also coolstuffing.com. Alright, let's get into blue. We'll jump right in here. We'll jump right in to Acquisition Octopus. What? Okay, Acquisition Octopus, sure. 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature, Equipment Octopus. This has the reconfigure ability I mentioned in white. It is a equipment, but when it's not equipped, it's also a creature. Whenever it does damage to a player, draw a card. Pretty solid card. So this is a Scroll Thief. Not Scroll Thief. What's the 2/2 one? Otter? Thieving Otter? This is a Thieving Otter with upside, where you can equip it onto a flyer or something like that. Pretty cool limited card. Very, very solid. Constructed, no, but solid limited card. This card will be very good or very bad depending on your deck. Do you have ways to push it through? Do you have removal spells? Do you have basic creatures? What kind of deck are you basically? Will make this card, make or break this card in limited, but solid card. Solid card. Second card here is Anchor to Reality. Blue, 2 sorcery. Additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. Search the library for an equipment card or a vehicle card. Put it in the battlefield, then shuffle. If it has a mana value less than the sacrificed permanent's mana value, scry 2. Wow, any vehicle? No mana restriction? Okay. So we have Tinker for equipments and vehicles. But you can also sacrifice a creature. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's Tinker, I guess. Sure. So this can get Caldera Complete. It can get Sky Sovereign. There are some big ones you can get with this for sure. Is that good enough? I would say probably not. At 4 mana, but one to watch out for. This is the kind of card where like 4 years from now, they're going to print some stupid, like, 10 mana vehicle or whatever. They're like, you win the game or whatever. And everyone's going to be like, oh, crap, Anchor of Reality. So, as it stands right now, this card, like, probably is good enough. And it only gets equipment or vehicles, not artifacts. So it's not Tinker. Yeah, that's a card, I guess. That's a card. Probably don't play this card in Limited because what you're getting better be really, really good. But definitely a card potentially broken. We'll see. This is a wait and see kind of card. Up next is Armguard Familiar. We have a 2 mana 2/1 bread and butter limited card here. Equipment with Ward 2. So 2 mana 2/1 with Ward 2. It's okay. It also has equipped creature gets +2/+1 and Ward 2, and it reconfigures for 4. It's a solid limited card, honestly. As a 2-drop, it's already pretty reasonable. And then later in the game, you can put this on your flyer or whatever. Give it Ward. Solid limited card. Solid limited common. Very reasonable. Up next is Awakened Awareness. Blue X for an enchantment, aura, enchanted artifact, or creature. When it enters the battlefield, put X +1/+1 counters on enchanted permanent. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it has base, power, and toughness 1. Kind of a weird card. So this is sort of like a removal spell that's also possibly a mana sink. You can just pay blue, put this on your opponent's creature, make it a 1/1, which is not great, but okay. Or you can dump like 5 mana into it and make it, make your own 6/6. Reasonably flexible limited card for that reason. Not good and constructed, but reasonably flexible limited card. This is fine. Behold the Unspeakable is our next card. And again, sagas are back. They are different than they were previously. As their 3rd chapter, they actually flip, which is kind of cool. So, chapter 1, creatures you don't control get -1, -2, -0 until your next turn. Chapter 2, if you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, draw 4 cards. Otherwise, scry 2 and draw 2 cards. That's pretty good. So, this can be some serious card draw. So, you play it, and it protects you for the turn. Then, next chapter, we'll draw some cards. Then it flips over into Vision of the Unspeakable, which is a flying trample creature with +1/+1 for a number of cards in hand. This is a very solid limited card. Kind of card, you're going to play it. It buys you the time it needs because it can't affect the board immediately. then you draw some cards off of it, and then you get a threat. So it'll probably be a 2/2 flyer, a 3/3 flyer, but that's fine. Honestly, it's Mold-Drifter at that point, you know? So very, very solid card. Very, very solid card. Good limited card. Good limited card. Up next is Covert Technician, the mana for a 2/4 human ninja. Ninjas are back, of course, with the Ninjutsu ability, where you can pay 2 and return unblocked attacker and put it in tapped attacking. Whenever it does combat damage to a player, you may put an artifact card with mana value less than or equal to the damage from your hand onto the battlefield. That doesn't feel like a very useful ability. You just put in a 2 mana artifact, I guess, which is like fine. So just an okay card. The body is fine. A 2/4 for 3 is certainly okay. And then if you have ninja synergies in your deck and you want to be bouncing your creatures and stuff like that, it's okay as well. But just an okay limited card. Nothing really super exciting here. Just a card. Just a card. Discover the Impossible is next. 3 mana for an instant. Oh my god, these cards. There's just so many lines of text. My reading glasses on. This is the wordiest set of all time. Those who don't know, the wordiest set of all time. Like, actually, the wordiest set of all time. Look top 5 cards of your library, instant speed. Exile 1 face down. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. If it's an instant spell, mana value 2 or less. If you don't, put it in your hand. This card's, like, kind of cool. I tend to really hate these kind of, like, impulse, you know, anticipate kind of effects. 3 mana for 1 card is just not great. But the fact that you can just play the card is pretty sweet. You know, so you cast it on their turn, you go find a removal spell, and just cast it immediately. You get Vanishing Verse or whatever. That makes the card much more reasonable because now you're getting the mana back for kind of a clunky card. Very, very narrow, though. I think if you're not casting the card immediately, the card's not very good, and it needs to be played in a deck that's completely full of instants. So this card is probably too narrow to be worthwhile in most cases. But it is kind of a cool card that could see play. In limited, highly doubtful. This only gets it can't get anything, but like 3 mana for an impulse for 5 is just not good. Just not very good. Not very good. Does it cast suspend spells? Yeah. Oh, they're sorceries. Never mind. They're sorceries. You're right. So moving on. Disruption Protocol. I like this card. Blue instant, counter target spell. Nothing else to see here. That's it. Just that. As additional cost to cast a spell, pay 1 or tap an untapped artifact you control. So, cancel at the lowest, right? Just to cancel, which is not good, but it could be worse. However, you tap an artifact here. This is a counter spell. We could tap a blood token, tap a treasure token. We can tap whatever random artifact we have laying around. Equipment is the best thing to tap because those things don't matter if you tap at all. This card's pretty solid. Metallic Rebuke adjacent for sure. Possibly better than Rebuke in a heavy blue deck, but cool card. Cool card for sure. Cool card. In limited, it's okay. I don't love counter spells in limited, but it's kind of cool. Up next is Essence Capture. This is a reprint. This card saw play back in the day. Autumn Burchett won Mythic Championship 1 with this card in their deck. This is a blue instant. Counter target creature spell. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 creature you control. So, must be played in a very heavy blue deck, obviously, because you gotta be able to cast this card. Remove Soul / Essence Scatter is okay. It's a fine card. Not an amazing card, but a fine card. The counter matters, though, if you're playing kind of like a blue tempo deck. And then, of course, with the modified mechanic being a thing, that could also matter a lot too. So, cool reprint, fine limited card, very playable constructed card if the right deck exists. If it doesn't exist, it's not playable, but it's narrow, but can be quite good. Futurist Operative. 4 mana for a 3/4 human ninja. So decent body for limited. As long as it's tapped, it's a human citizen with base power and toughness 1/1 and can't be blocked. 3 mana to untap it. That is a really funny card. Okay, so you attack with it, and it's not a ninja anymore. It's just a human. I don't know what you're talking about. There's no ninjas here, officer. I'm just a citizen. I'm just going to work. Can't be blocked. And then you can ninja it, of course, or you can untap it and make it into a 3/4 again after it's unblocked. Pretty fun, flavorful limited card. Blocks pretty well, and then can also be an evasive threat later in the game. It's a fine limited card. How about Futurist Sentinel? Formatter for a 6/6.
Oh my
Pretty big.
God, Becky.
Pretty big. And as crew 3. So this is the kind of card we were talking about with the white tokens that can crew larger than what they are. This is a good thing to crew. However, this is a 4-mana card that doesn't actually do anything by itself, which is a major concern. A major concern. If you're looking for a honk and chonker in your draft deck, this can fit that bill, but not the most exciting card. Probably not a high pick. Just kind of like a I need a big thing. I can play this if I want to kind of card. Ghost Shintai of Lost Wisdom. The blue shrine. Once again, shrine is not a creature type, unfortunately. I know. It's kind of annoying. I'm sorry, your mutable on a shrine. It is what it is. This is an 0/4 for 2. I haven't seen all the shrines yet. This one feels like the best one to me. An 0/4 flyer for 2 is already pretty good. For limited, it's a good rate blocker. Constructed, it's got enough stats to stay alive. And then at your end step, you can pay 1. If you do, target player mills X cards, or X is the number of shrines you control. So if you want to do some self-mill, pretty cool. It's an enchantment, kind of cool. So the stats are there if there's a deck that wants to use these kind of effects. Not particularly powerful, but definitely could be a niche player. And then limited, just a reasonable blocker, honestly. Just a very reasonable blocker. And then eventually you can also deck your opponent with it as well, which is kind of cool. And Guardians of a Borough is next. 3 mana for a 3/4 defender. Modified creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have defenders. So if you can modify this in some way, put an equipment on it, put an aura file. I guess we have. We're only in blue, Jim. Pull your shit together. Come on. Let's go.
Make a little noise here.
I need your energy, folks. I need your energy. Haven't discussed modified yet. So modified is a new ability where a creature is modified if it is equipped, if it has an aura on it that you control, or if it has a counter on it. All right. So this is a 3/4 defender, but if you get a counter on it, it's just free to go, free to attack. So solid creature. I tend to like these cards in limited, the kind of oversized defenders that are good as the game goes on, because I think it's really important in limited tempo-wise to play things that can block well. I'd much rather play this card, a 3/4 that can't attack until later, as a 3-drop, than play some random like 2/2 flyer for 4 with like some cool ability, because that card just can't block the turn you cast it, and you're just falling way, way behind. So this is a very solid limited card. We'll obviously scale synergy-wise based on the ways you can modify it, but solid card. Like nice solid draft card. Like it a lot. Up next is Inventive Iteration. This is a rare 4-mana saga. Chapter 1, return a creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand, so bounce spell. Chapter 2, return an artifact card from your graveyard to your hand if you can't draw a card. So we have bounce something and then get a card one way or another. And then Chapter 3, it flips over into Living Breakthrough. This is a 3/3 flyer. Whenever you cast a spell, your opponents cannot cast spells with the same mana value as that spell until your next turn. Kind of a weird, narrow ability. Don't see this card making any splash at all in Constructed. None of the things it does are actually good. But in Limited, this is a phenomenal card. Bounce something, draw a card, make a 3/3 flyer. That's great. And occasionally it will screw your opponent. Kind of cool also that, like, say you play a 2-drop, you know they can't play 2-mana tricks till your next turn, which is kind of cool. So, great limited card, but otherwise not very exciting. Up next is Invoke the Winds, part of a cycle of the Invokes, which are all color sorceries that have splashy effects. This one here is to gain control of an artifact or creature, untap it. This card's good. This card is good. The card Volition Reigns, which is an enchantment version of this card that costs 6, saw some play when it was legal and standard. The big thing here is the fact that it untaps the thing you steal. A lot of the problem with the control magic kind of card is your opponent's beating the crap out of you, and you want to defend yourself with the control magic card, but you can't because the big thing is tapped already. So this untapping the thing you steal is very good. This card will absolutely see play in Constructed as long as I can actually cast it. Very, very powerful effect. Very, very solid effect. I like it a lot. And then Limited, just an absolute bomb. If your deck can cast this card, and you do cast this card, you'll probably win that game. And yeah, Lear can also flash it back. That is true. Also kind of scary, actually. But very, very powerful card. Very, very powerful card. Thank God this is rare. Couldn't agree more. Ugh. Jin-gitaxias, Progress Tyrant. There's Phyrexians here. There's Phyrexians here.
Inconceivable!
I know, right? The Phyrexians are invading everything. We had Vorinclex on Kaldheim, was that? Now you have jin-gitaxias on Progress Tyrant, and you don't want to know what jin-gitaxias is up to. Get your tissues out, folks. Get your oh, I just got something in my eye. I'm fine for a little bit later. But jin-gitaxias is a 7 mana 5/5 with no evasive abilities. So not an amazing start. Whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose to do targets for the copy. That's a pretty good ability, but not very good as far as the initial, like, you play this card, it doesn't actually do anything to you on tap with it. However, it does have a small amount of protection. Whenever an opponent casts an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, counter that spell once per turn. So they get the first artifact, instant, or sorcery they play is countered. So it does protect itself in that way. But all in all, like, I don't really know what deck would want this card. Like a control deck, by the time you cast this card, you're tapping out for it. They likely have multiple kill spells in their hand anyway because they've been rotting in their hand. You gotta untap with it and start copying spells, but like, why not just play Leer or Hullbreaker Horror, So for Constructed, I don't think this card is particularly exciting. It's kind of a cool card. It does have the ability for you can reanimate it really early, you can like counter their kill spells on it, but all in all, a pretty fun card, a pretty cool card, not a very good card. Doesn't really have anything nimble enough to be excellent. In Limited, it's busted. Just totally busted. Cast the card, untap, win the game for sure. But, for Commander, pretty cool. For casual play, pretty cool. Constructed, probably not. Probably not. All right, move on to the Swirling Sky. Kyrie, the Swirling Sky. One of the 5 Dragon Spirit Legends. We've got 6 mana for a 6/6 flying ward 3. So, decent stats. The ward does help protect it, but of course, at that point in the game, they can probably end up playing the mana if they need to. Has double death triggers, as usual. When it dies, choose 1. Return any number of target non-land permanents with total mana value 6 or less to their owner's hands, which is pretty good. It's infinite tokens, and then, if they have a board in play, you can bounce their board. And also, it can mill 6 cards and return up to 2 instant and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. The problem with this card is, I don't know what deck wants this card. And we hear this a lot, because the problem in Magic is that a card can be pretty good by itself, but without a home, without a thing to do, it's got nowhere to go. So for example, like a Psionic Blast, which was the blue version of Char. Blue spell, 4 damage something, you take 2. Never was that good because there weren't other burn spells to go with it, so it didn't really have a home. It's a pretty good card, obviously, but it saw some play, but it just wasn't really as good as the red version because it didn't really have cards that complemented it. And this is kind of the problem I'm seeing with this card. This is a solid card. The fact that it has the protection of when you play this and tap out for it, if they kill it, you can wreck their board and not get like destroyed by their attack is kind of cool. But there's also a lot of exiling removal in the format right now, which doesn't bode well for all of these dragons. And if they get to exile your 6-drop and just kill you, that's a huge problem, So cards like Vanishing Verse and so on and so forth could be an issue for this card as well. So I'm not sure if this one will see too much play constructed. It is reasonably powerful, and then of course the ability to return instant sorcery cards. You got to have enough instant sorcery cards in your deck to want that to work too. So an absolute limited bomb, of course. A pretty powerful card in a vacuum, but not sure if it'll find a home in a world of Leers and Hullbreaker Horrors. Up next is March of Swirling Mist. This is the blue version of the pitch spell cycle. A blue and X, up to X target creatures phase out. And you can pitch blue cards to pay 2 for the X. Okay, I guess, like this card for a rare fancy pitch card, not the most exciting card. Phase out can basically just be like your stuff can't block for the turn, which is not a particularly powerful effect. It's okay. You can save your own stuff, which is okay, I guess. I don't know why you're taking cards away from yourself to like play this for more. Not super exciting. Just like, just a kind of like card. It's not a blink, it's a phase, so things are coming back. Yeah, it's just not very exciting. It's a fog if you want it. You can, phase out their attackers and stuff like that, but just a pretty underpowered card. This is like a fog, this is like fog, falter, or like protect your own creature or two. And I don't know what constructed deck wants that. In limited, this can work. In limited, you can play a falter for sure. But if it blinked, it'd be very good. I agree. If it was a blink effect, it'd be very, very good. But as a phase, not very exciting. Not very exciting. Up next is Mind Link Mech. 3 mana for a 4/3 flying vehicle. When it becomes crewed for the first time each turn, until end of turn, it becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed this turn. Except it's still a 4/3, it's a vehicle, and it's flying. This card seems pretty good. Because this card is effectively giving haste and flying to whatever you want to play. And there are a lot of cards, obviously, that are very good with haste and flying. So, Crew 1 is pretty solid as well. Very, very much an upper tier vehicle for constructed play. Attack triggers, I can't really think of cards off the top of my head that go well with this, but this definitely goes well with a lot of stuff. It doesn't work for ETB abilities, but for attack triggers, for deal damage to player triggers, those are all pretty awesome. And if it has a lifelinker, it can be a lifelinker. Dreadhorde Harkness is a pretty cool one. That one's a pretty cool. Flying is big. It's well sized. It crews pretty easily. Just a solid all around card on rate. Bomb and limited for sure. Bomb and limited for sure. And I'm sure you can find cool things to do with this in constructed. It's sweet. Sweet. I like it. I like it. Up next is Mirror Shell Crab, which is a 6 mana 5/7.
Oh my god, Becky.
Yeah, that's a big booty. And it's got Ward 3, so it's a decent castable card in limited. But again, as I've been saying, a lot of these channel cards are better for their channel ability than they are for the actual card. So the channel ability here is 3 mana to discard this, and you have to mana leak something. That's not bad. This is an uncounterable mana leak. So in the early game, it's a mana leak. And in the late game, it's just a big curve topper. In limited, this is a really, really big creature. So flexible on both sides here. Basically a split spell of mana leak and big dumb idiot. And for limited, it's a very, very solid card. Very, very solid card. Like it in limited. Constructed, no. No, but solid card. Up next is Manamix Spear. Can I get an F in chat, please, for Courier's Capsule? YouTube folks, that's your comment of the day. F in chat for Courier's Capsule. Courier's Capsule is just this card without the China ability. So power creep is struck again. Very, very sad. Very, very sad. Courier's Capsule. So 2 mana artifact, you play it. Pay 2, sack it, draw 2 cards. That's a okay rate. A not great rate, it's okay. Or you can channel it for 1 blue to draw a card. That's called cycling. Wizards of the Coast. You can't fool me. You can't fool me. I know cycling when I see it, all right? That's called cycling. So, obviously, 1 blue draw card is like a pretty good floor as well. It's a cool cantrip for Delirium. It's very, very true. It's an artifact that goes to the grave very, very, very easily. Lurrus can recast this. Everyone loves Lurrus, right? But, yeah, kind of an okay card. Nothing super exciting. Just fine. In limited, super solid card as well. Super solid card as well. Fills your curve in limited. This is a cool card because it kind of fills the holes in your curve. You have a 2-drop, and then you have a 5-drop later, or no whatever, you can play it. So pretty cool, pretty cool. Up next is Mobilizer Mech, 2 mana for a 3/4 flying vehicle. Whenever it becomes crewed, up to 1 other vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. This is a rock solid limited card. Rock solid limited card. A 2/3 flying vehicle for 2 is very reasonable. Crew 3 is kind of a lot, but there are ways to get around that, of course. And this will crew another vehicle you have. Whatever. No limitations. It can crew anything. It can crew anything. So that's pretty sweet if you're kind of like a vehicle deck. Very, very solid card. Very, very solid card. Solid limited card. Constructed? Maybe. Maybe. The fact that this can make it so if you only have 1 creature, you can crew other stuff with it too is kind of cool. So it's cool. It's cool. I like it. I like it. Up next is the Modern Age Common Blue Saga. 2 mana. Draw discard, and then we can flip over to a 2/3 flyer. This card is just like okay. A 2/3 flyer with suspend 2 is passable. And then while looting effects are fine in limited later in the game to mitigate mana flood, they're not really good on turn 2 unless you're actively using the graveyard. Because you just don't typically want to discard things because you want your lands, you want your spells. Later in the game it's good, but early on. So, kind of an iffy suspendy card. You can ninja it back to your hand and recast it, but again, I'm not a big fan of looting effects in limited. I think this one is kind of middling, honestly. I think this one's kind of middling. It's important to note also with these flip sagas, the creature will not have haste, unlike suspend, because the saga actually exiles and then comes back to remove the counters from it. So you play this on turn 2, then turn 3 goes around. Turn 4, it exiles and flips. You have a 2/3 flyer, but it can't attack yet. So that's like this, the ceiling, honestly, too. That's not great. Not great. So not super thrilled. Up next is Moon Circuit Hacker. We got a sleeper card here, folks. Ninja for deep hours, eat your heart out. This card is efficient. 2 mana for a 2/1 ninja. Let's just skip the ninja ability, all right? Whenever it does combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card, unless this card enters the battlefield this turn. So, minus Ninjutsu. This is just a 2/1. Whenever it hits your opponent, you loot. Is that good enough by itself? No. Is that a pretty good floor? Yeah, that's a pretty good floor. Then you look at the Ninjutsu cost, and a cost of 1 is great. You can use this on turn 2, and you can recast your 1-drop. If it deals damage on that first ninja attack, it draws a card, and you keep it. So, turn 1, whatever 1-drop. Turn 2, attack, ninja this in, get a 2/1, draw a card, recast the 1-drop is a really good start. And that's not hard to do. You just need to have a 1-drop, and that is it. So, very, very solid card. I think this card will be a Pauper All-Star. I think this card will probably see play constructed at some point. Great limited card. One of the better, if not the best ninjas we've seen so far, for sure. This card's good. Super sleeper here. Do not sleep on this card because I think it is quite awesome for limited and constructed as well. Up next is Moonfolk Puzzle Maker. 3 mana for a 1/4 flyer. It's a good blocking body. Whenever it becomes tapped, scry 1. So it can crew things and scry, which is kind of cool. Okay attacker, okay blocker. Just a reasonable limited card for a defensive flyer deck. Things like that. Just an okay limited card. Moon Snare Prototype. Springwave Drum, but it's blue. This card is cool. I like this card a lot, but it is much less flexible than Springleaf Drum. It is hard to cast the first turn, and then it can't help you cast other things because it only makes colorless. That sucks. That kind of sucks. I was very excited about this card, but I thought about it a little more. I'm just like not thrilled with it. The fact that you can channel this for a removal spell is kind of cool. Awesome. Also, in limited, this is more of a spell than an artifact. In constructed, this is more of an artifact than a spell, but the flexibility is fine on both sides. So I think this card will see play, maybe in historic, things like that. It's certainly a playable card, but not a great card. And again, Drum is so flexible, this card is not, which kind of sucks, because I do like it. High limited pick, though, for removal, though. Up next is Moon Snare Specialist. 4 mana for a 2/2 ninja. It has Ninjutsu for 3 mana. Whenever it ETBs, bounce a creature. Wait, what? Whenever it ETBs, return 1 target creature to its owner's hand. So, kind of like the Mana War Ninja, which is okay. Good limited card. Attack, they don't block. Put the thing in, bounce the thing. It's all fine. If your deck wants ninjas, solid limited card. Up next is Network Disruptor. This is a flying man, one mana for 1 flyer. Comes into play, taps something. This is going to be a solid limited card for your ninja decks. It's a good enabler. It's a little bit good later in the games. You can tap blockers. Just super solid card. Planner Incision. 2 mana for an instant. Exile target artifact or creature, then return to the battlefield under your control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So a way to turn on modified, kind of like a protection spell. It's a blank effect also. This is like your middling limited card. If you have things to blink or you have modify things, sure, but pretty unexciting. Not really a trick. Just eh. Prosperous Thief is next. 3 mana for a 3/2 ninja. Ninjas for 2. Whenever 1 or more ninjas you control or rogues does combat damage to a player, make a treasure. Solid card. Making treasure is pretty good. And the cost is reasonable enough. Good limited card. Probably not for constructed, but definitely a solid limited card. Up next is the Reality Chip. Kind of a weird one here. This is an equipment jellyfish. I don't know why we have an equipment jellyfish. But we do, so here we go. 2 mana for a legendary artifact creature. It's an 0/4. Look at the top card of your library whenever you want. If it's attached to a creature, you can play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. So, if you put this onto a creature, it becomes Future Sight, which is a powerful effect. You can just play cards off the top of your deck like crazy. That's really cool, but pretty clunky as well. You know, like you move this onto your creature, they kill it in response. That's pretty bad. Being an 0/4 for 2, though, it's like a decent blocker as well. So, great, insane limited card. Like, insane limited card. You're going to have a lot of fun with this card. Just going whoop, whoop, whoop off the top. Constructed, probably not. Constructed, probably not. This is part of a story. I don't know what part of a story it is. It's like tether. It's like USB chip or something. I don't really know. But great limited card. Probably not there for constructed. Reality Heist is next. Nothing? No? Nothing? Reality Heist is a blue 5 instant. Has affinity for artifacts. And then you look at the top 7 cards of your library. Reveal up to 2 artifacts in them. Put them in your hand, but the rest in the bottom. This card is interesting. Immediate comparison here, of course, is Dig Through Time, which is, of course, a very powerful card. But you got to have a lot of artifacts in your deck for this card to be good. And then you need to be looking for a lot of artifacts, too. So if your payoff cards are not artifacts, say they're like, you know, I don't know, whatever, Urza Saga or whatever, you know, this can't get those. So I'm not really big on this card. You know, the problem is that if you're playing an affinity kind of deck, there's a huge bar for cards in your deck that aren't artifacts. And this is not an artifact. It also costs blue, so it's somewhat hard to cast. This deck seems like it would be good in kind of like prison-y, tesserator-y, you know, like bullshit and snaring bridge decks. Where you're like just playing a bunch of random artifacts anyway, like, you know, Codex Shredder and stuff like that. You want to find other stuff, maybe, but it just doesn't really get a lot of the good payoff cards, I don't think. I think this card is a little overrated. People are like nuts over this card right now. I think it's just kind of definitely playable. Definitely a playable card, but I think it's much more narrow than your average person thinks it is. So I think it's a fringe playable. It will be pretty good in the right deck. I think that right deck is going to be few and far between. And then in limited, this card can just be pretty good. You're playing artifacts, obviously, just to draw 2, which is great. So definitely a breakable card, but not a card that's like universally really good. Moving on to Replication Specialist, 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer, which is a pretty good rate for limited. Whenever a non-token artifact has been under your control, you may pay 2 if you do make a copy of it. This is an insane limited card. Just an insane limited card. 3/4 flyer for 4 or for 5 is already like almost there. If you untap with this and start playing artifacts and copying them, insane. Insane limited card, super great. Not for constructed, but super cool limited card. Super cool limited card. Up next is Saga Trespassers. This is a 5 mana 3/5. Channel 4. Discard this, tap 2 creatures you don't control, and then untap. This card's pretty sweet. So it's 4 mana Blinding Beam. Tap 2 things, and then untap. So very good in aggressive decks as far as a way to push through. And then also just like a fine body. It's not great, but it's passable. So this is an okay draft card. Not a card you're clamoring to get in your deck, but if this card's in your deck, I wouldn't be embarrassed either. Up next is Short Circuit. 2 mana for a flash enchantment. Artifact creature. -3/-0, loses flying. Pretty bad card. Not a very good card. Sky Simmer Koi is next. Cool art. 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer, which is already good. And it's got upside. Remember freaking Phantom Monsters? Jeez. These 3/3 flyers with upside all day. Whenever an artifact has been under your control, you may draw a card, discard a card. Top flight blue common. Great blue common. Great body. Great card filtering later in the game. Just super good common for limited. Great card. Spell Pierce is back. I love Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce is great. Usually used against nasty control decks trying to do big sorcery and things. So, like it a lot. It's back. Don't play it in limited. You'll probably play it a little too much in constructed, but it's good. It's back. Suit Up. Iron Man Suit Up scene. Anyone? No. 3 mana for an instant. Till end of turn, a creature or vehicle becomes an artifact creature with base power on top is 4 and 5. Draw a card. This isn't a bad trick, honestly. We see a lot of these like random blue cards, like 2 mana, your thing's a 5/5 blue turn. That kind of suck. This cantripping is actually huge though, because you can use this to like, you know, whatever, block your thing, give +1/+1. Imagine if it's just like wild size. It's just +2/+2, draw a card. That's fine. That's fine. And seeing a trick in blue is kind of cool. Good limited card. Good limited card. Up next is Tameshi, Reality Architect. 3 mana for a 2/3 legendary Moonfolk. Whenever one or more non-creature permanents are returned to hand, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Okay. Pay a white and X to return a land you control to its owner's hand. Return target artifact or enchantment card, mana value X or less, from your graveyard to the battlefield, only as a sorcery. Alright, so if you're a ninja-ing, you get to draw a card when you ninja. Sure. And then you can, like, return. I mean, I don't freaking know. This is like a great limited card that probably will do nothing instructed. Oh, it's non-creature. Oh, sure. Then I don't freaking know what to do with this card. It's a good limited card. Whatever. I'm moving on. It's not going to play any competitive constructed, I don't think. So, yeah, I don't know. Next up, ooh, spoiler alert. Ooh. Yeah, spoiler alert. Tameo's completion. Poor Tameo. Poor Tameo. Tameo is now one with the Borg. Sorry, folks. 3 mana flash or 4 mana flash aura. Enchant creature, artifact, or planeswalker. Comes into play, tap it. If it's equipment, unattach it, and it loses all abilities, doesn't untap. This is your typical blue removal spell, limited, high limited card, high limited first pick. It's a good card. Good card. Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh. Tezzeret is back. Tezzeret's back. You know what that means?
It's a trap.
I don't think Tezzeret's very good. Blue 2, Planeswalker. The first activated ability of an artifact you activate each turn costs 2 less to activate. Pretty narrow. Pretty narrow. +1, draw 2, then discard 2. Unless you discard an artifact card. Which is weird because, like, you're not going to want to discard that many artifacts typically. So it's mostly just draw 2, discard 2, which isn't very good. It -2s to make an artifact into a 4/4 permanently, which is fine. But leaves the Tezzeret very, very vulnerable at only 2 loyalty. And then the emblem is, or the ultimate is, get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control comes tapped, draw a card. This card just kind of sucks. This card isn't very good. Like, nothing this card does is a desirable effect. It's not an artifact itself. Needs to play with a lot of artifacts. Doesn't really kill anything. Doesn't defend itself super well. It only makes card advantage if you're discarding spells. It's just not a very good card. It's just not a very good card. It's flashy. I do like some old Tezzeret cards, but this one's just not very good. In limited, it's great, obviously, because any Planeswalker is good in limited. But it's not draw 2. It's draw 2, then discard 2. And that's not very good. That's not very good. So we'll see. We'll see, but that's our trap card. Not super excited about Tezzeret. Thirst for Knowledge returns. Kind of a sneaky one, snuck right in there, the spoiler. Thirst for Knowledge is a card that used to be insanely good, and is now less good. Thirst for Knowledge the first time around was in the same format as Chromox, Trinket Mage packages. There was a lot of good junk to discard back then, whereas now the artifacts for your deck are a little bit better. You know, it's probably going to see play. I would temper expectations a little bit. There was a time where this card was restricted and limited. Yeah, talismans and artifact lands too, exactly. So, like, when you're discarding an artifact land to this, great. But if you're discarding an actual spell you want, not as good. Definitely good. It's definitely going to be a good card. You'll probably see play. If there's like an artifact you control, that could be really, really cool. But, yeah, I think I would temper expectations a little bit based on history. But definitely a constructed playable card. In limited, phenomenal. Phenomenal card, obviously. Discard 2 lands is like fine, you know, and then discarding artifacts also fine too. Solid card. And then of course, if there's any deck that wants to actively get a artifact in the graveyard for like graveyard stuff, this is your card. Up next is Thousand Face Shadow, and I'm not completely sure about this, but we're going to call it best in show. More so because none of the other blue cards really inspire me. A lot of them seem fine and solid, but not amazing. This card's good, though. And if there's going to be a ninja deck in the format, this card is going to be the linchpin for it because it is just so cheap and efficient. 1 mana flying ninja for 1. Simple. But the fact this is also can be a payoff card later is pretty sweet. You can copy your own attackers, get more effects, and so on and so forth. The fact that you can play this on 1, attack a ninja back to your hand, do your ninja thing, and then later on ninja this into play on something else for a cool effect is pretty sweet. Just a really solid 1-drop, and I really think that if there's going to be a ninja deck, which I think there will be, this is definitely a very, very solid piece for it. I like it. And limited, phenomenal card. Great card, limited. But yeah, like it a lot. Like it a lot. I'm down for 1,000 Face Shadow as our best in show. That's it. That's it. There are no more cards. That's it for blue. So, that's blue. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the YouTube comments, all right? Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in black YouTube, folks. Make sure you do all that, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, YouTube. Appreciate it.